following is a feature presentation of the Replay Sports Channel, home for the great games. Good evening, football fans. It's the moment you've been waiting for the entire off-season, the 2023 WFL season getting ready to get underway. The first official event is the player draft. Tonight, we will share with you the first round selections of all 20 teams from the WFL, give you some analysis, and post-pick responses as we move forward. So as you're probably familiar, if you've watched the season last year, we had 8 teams that did not make the playoffs, and then the remaining squads that did, all the way through Berlin and St. Louis, who played in the Pantheon Bowl. So we're going to go ahead and take you to our screen. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on the Replay Sports Channel. I'm Glenn Walker. Welcome you to the Replay Sports Channel studios. Been a few weeks, so we are ready, set to go here with our draft. And again, just to kind of give you the draft order as they finish, this inverse order of their finish. Washington will be selecting first. They're on the clock, followed by New York, Arizona, Memphis, Chicago, London, Denver, Los Angeles. You'll see some new names in there. We'll talk more about the teams that moved during the offseason, starting with the Barcelona Dragons and then the Detroit Wheels. That'll top out the top half of our draft order. And then we move on. Birmingham will be drafting 11th. The Mexico City Aztecs will be drafting 12th. San Antonio, 13th. The Paris Legends, another new team, will be drafting 14th. The Toronto Hitmen, the 2021 league champions, drafting 15th. The San Diego Fleet will be drafting 16th. The Tampa Bay Bandits, 17th. The Las Vegas Outlaws, drafting 18th. And, of course, the most recent Pantheon Bowl participants, the Berlin Thunder, and, of course, our defending league champions, the St. Louis Stars, will be drafting last. So, again, we're going to start with the Washington Federals. They are on the clock. They finished at 3-11 last season. This is only the second time in franchise history that Washington will be drafting first. Last time you got to go back to 2005. They ended up trading out of that pick that eventually went to Los Angeles. So where do you begin with the needs of this team? Washington's defense managed just 13 sacks in 2022. They struggled in all areas, near the bottom in total yards given up per game, points allowed, rushing yards allowed, and passing yards allowed. John Harbaugh, no longer the coach at Washington. He was the longest tenured coach in WFL history, and he is now gone. Frank Wright has taken over. Make sure we have the slide ready there as we await their picks. So definite needs coming into tonight or this draft for the Washington Federals. Definitely the defensive side of the ball. Also the issue of quarterback. They had the season last year with Cam Newton as the caretaker quarterback. Questions about Sam Darnold and, of course, that offensive line. So we are eager to hear the pick, and we understand the pick is in from the Federals front office. And we await the selection of who they're going to select as it's handed in. Little technical difficulties. Oh, yes, the pick is in. Here we go. And the first overall pick of the 2023 draft, no surprise, Aiden Hutchinson, defensive end from Michigan. And what a powerful player. 6'7", 268 pounds. Won several awards. Most recently, the Ted Hendricks Award, the Lombardi Awards, Defensive Player of the Year, and a unanimous All-American. He's going to be an instant upgrade to that Washington defensive unit. They lost some players in free agency, most notably linebacker Roquan Smith and defensive end Taco Charlton. So this will definitely be an upgrade. Tenacious defensive end for the Michigan Wolverines. Now will be wearing the green and white and black for the Washington Federals. On the clock now, the New York Generals. If you followed the league, 2 years ago, the Generals were sitting in that number one spot. They got to pick first, and they took Chase Young. Chase Young having his injury issues, and then last year they made the playoffs, and they scored big by drafting Micah Parsons. So Coach Robert Saleh adding pieces to the puzzle for the defensive side of the ball. Of course, they get the big free agent acquisition of Russell Wilson, but it turned up to going 4-10 last season. They failed to make the playoffs. So some areas of concern. Defense. The Generals allowed nearly 30 points a game on average. They are 15th in the league in total yards allowed, and in the bottom half of the league as far as rushing yards and passing yards allowed. They lose inside linebacker Fred Warner and some key offensive players. Wide receiver Van Jefferson, who had some successful games during the season, and tackle Hubbard. Offensively, Russell Wilson sacked a lot, 45 times last season, the offensive line allowed. And red zone offense, only successful inside the 20 just 73% of the time. So it's interesting to see, where the Generals will go as the pick is moving in. And we await the commissioner to announce the pick for the New York Generals. And it's going to be cornerback Sauce Gardner from Cincinnati. What a great pick there. 2021 All-American, 2021 the AAC Defensive Player of the Year. Definitely an improvement. And that New York defense looking to look a lot better moving into the 2023 season. We're going to move on now to the Arizona Wranglers. Herm Edwards fired after they ended 2022 on a 6-game losing streak. They had a winning record coming into the final half of the season, and it just went all downhill from there. New head coach Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, looking to revitalize this team, who were league champions not too many years ago. Failed to make the playoffs last season, ending at 5-9. They lose some key players defensively in free agency, Simmons and Neal. They also lose running back Joe Mixon. So some additions need to be made to the Arizona Wranglers moving into this season. Could use some help on the offensive side as well, as the pick is coming in for the Wranglers. And we await the pick from the commissioner. And they're going to go defense. Cornerback Derek Stingley Jr. from the Louisiana State University, LSU. As a freshman, he led the SEC in interceptions. He's a first-team All-SEC and an All-American, 6 feet, 190 pounds. What a statement there by Coach Prime, drafting a defensive back in his first pick as a head coach in the WFL. We move on now to our next club, the Memphis Express, another disappointing team. Last year, they bring in Lamar Jackson after the Deshaun Watson fiasco, and they struggle in at 5-9. They started the season at 500. They were at 3-3, and then they dropped 6 out of their last 8 games. They lose a key anchor to their offensive line, Ben Jones at center, gone to free agency. Definitely needs some help on defense. They ranked dead last in yards allowed, near the bottom in points allowed, and rushing yards allowed. So definitely some areas of improvement here for Coach Mike Vrabel. As the picks are coming in fast and furious here, love to have your comments as the picks are coming in on how the teams are doing. As the Memphis Express have selected, they go offensive line. Akeem Ekwinu, tackle from NC State. 6'4", 320-pound tackle. A unanimous All-American and a first-team All-ACC. looking to provide some help there on the offensive line, protecting quarterback Lamar Jackson, and also to help in the running game for Josh Jacobs. Moving on to our draft is the Chicago Fire. What a disappointing season last year. Started 3-2, and then they proceeded to lose 4 out of the last 7 games. They had a chance to make the playoffs coming into the final game of the season, but of course they lose at San Antonio on that final Sunday night game of the season. Worst defense in the WFL, allowing nearly 400 yards allowed per game on average. Rushing defense, opposing teams gained nearly 150 yards against them. So Coach Nick Saban has his hands full here in the rebuild. So Chicago, with their first pick, will go with Evan Neal from Alabama. So those Alabama ties strong for Coach Nick Saban. Offensive tackle, 6'7", 351 pounds, a consensus All-American, All-SEC team. Definitely good news there for quarterback Kyler Murray, and a revamped rushing attack for Chicago. We move forward. The London Knights, a team that did get off to a bad start. They were 1-5, but then a surprise. Davis Mills takes over at quarterback for Carson Wentz, pulls them to within 500, and they were in the running for a playoff spot, but of course did not make the playoffs. Defense needs to improve in its passing attack. They allow an average 262 yards passing yards per game last season. Need to upgrade there. They will see a healthy Christian McCaffrey back at running back, and looking to add some tools there as Davis Mills begins his second season as the starting quarterback. And let's see who London will go with. And interesting, yeah, they take a wide receiver with a last name London. So London to London. It'll be Drake London, wide receiver from University of Southern California, 6'4", 213-pound receiver. So former Pac-12 Offensive Player of the Year, first team All Pac-12. So Drake London taking his talents across the ocean to London. And now we move on to one of our new European teams. We're going to have a complete division full of European teams. We'll talk more about division lineups when we do the schedule release in our next broadcast. But one of our new European teams is the Rome Gladiators. Gladiators are formerly the Denver Gold. Denver Gold ceased operations, and the team was sold and moved to Rome. So it should be interesting to see how the game translates there. As Denver, they finished 6-8 last season. Lost Devin White, linebacker, to free agency. Defense allowed nearly 30 points a game and 16 rushing touchdowns. And the Rome Gladiators, with their first ever pick in the WFL, they're going to stay offensive line. Charles Cross, tackle from Mississippi State, 6'5", 311 pounds, All SEC tackle for Rome. So some added protection there for the quarterback Trevor Lawrence and that young team playing in Rome. And we move to the last of the teams that did not make the playoffs last year, the Los Angeles Wildcats. Wildcats finished 6-8. They started off like gangbusters, 3-0 last season, then proceeded to lose 5 out of their last 6 games. Los Angeles looking to make improvements really on both sides of the ball, particularly offense and defensive line. As the picks, they're coming in quick and fast here. Garrett Wilson, great selection there by Los Angeles, wide receiver from Ohio State. 6 foot, 192 pounds, first team All Big Ten, will be going to Los Angeles. So Josh McDaniels, former offensive coordinator, trying to get some weapons there to quarterback Dak Prescott. So those are the 8 teams that did not make the playoffs. Washington takes defensive end Aiden Hutchinson. New York takes cornerback Sauce Gardner. Arizona will select Derek Stingley, cornerback from LSU. Memphis going with Akeem Ekwinawu, the tackle. Chicago, Evan Neal, tackle from Alabama. London, Drake London to London, wide receiver. Rome going with Charles Cross. And Los Angeles with the most recent pick, wide receiver Garrett Wilson. Now we move on to the teams that did make the playoffs. And again, another European team. Of the new European teams that we have. First up, the Barcelona Dragons. They used to be known as the Philadelphia Bell. They are now known as the Barcelona Dragons. Philadelphia just barely made the playoffs last year. They're ousted by Orlando in the wild card round. And started off 5-2 and then struggled to make the playoffs as Philadelphia. And the Barcelona Dragons, with their first ever pick in the WFL, are going to go defensive end Kayvon Thibodeau from Oregon, 6'5", 258 pounds. This guy's a beast. Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year, unanimous All-American. He is going to be a difference maker for Barcelona on that defense. Another team that struggled to make the playoffs and then were bounced in the first round are the Detroit Wheels. They're picking at number 10. We're halfway through the draft. They were 4-3 at the halfway point and then proceeded to lose 5 out of their last 7 games. Again, they only managed 6 points against the then Houston Roughnecks in the wild card game. They lose cornerback Rock Ya-Sin to free agency. Definitely needing to get some help defensively. And the Detroit Wheels, with the 10th overall selection, take Jordan Davis, defensive tackle from the defending national champions, the Georgia Bulldogs. 6'6", 335 pounds. He's a former Bednarik winner, a former Outland Trophy winner, unanimous All-American. This guy's huge. He's going to be a difference maker on the defensive line for the Detroit Wheels. We'll move on to the Birmingham Americans. This is going to be an interesting team to watch this season. Came out of the gates in the old Southern Division, 6-2, but will go on to finish 1-6. Baker Mayfield no longer the quarterback there. That'll be an interesting position to see how the coaching staff fills that position. Also needing some help defensively. They lose Justin Reed, safety, and Shai Tuttle at defensive tackle. Might we see a quarterback finally go here in the first round? Pick is in, and the commissioner makes the announcement. And yes, we do see a quarterback. A quarterback goes at pick number 11. It's Kenny Pickett, quarterback from the University of Pittsburgh, 6'3", 220 pounds. Unitas Golden Arm winner, ACC Player of the Year, first-team All-American. Definitely, he's going to be in the conversation for starting quarterback. Could very well be a starting quarterback on opening day for the Americans. We move on now to the Mexico City Aztecs. Team struggled 7-7, made the playoffs, but they're ousted in the first round. Had the league's worst run offense when you consider Derrick Henry out for most of the season with injury, on and off. They averaged 92 yards per game in 2022. They also lose Matthew Stafford, quarterback, in free agency. So that's another developing situation to keep in mind here south of the border. Also, with the renovations going on at Azteca Stadium, if you're not familiar with the World Cup that's coming up in a few years' time, will be one of the primary stadiums along with the United States and Canada. Mexico will be one of the co-hosts. So Azteca Stadium's undergoing a facelift. So for this season, Mexico City will be temporarily housed at the Cotton Bowl in Dallas. So the pick is in, and the Aztecs are going to go with Kyle Hamilton from Notre Dame, a safety, 6'4", 220 pounds, consensus All-American, first team ACC. So Kyle Hamilton hoping to bolster Kevin Stefanski's Mexico City Aztec defense. Moving right along, you're watching the 2023 WFL draft here on the Replay Sports Channel. Again, thank you for joining us. New season just weeks away. And if you're not following us on the Replay Sports Channel, I encourage you to do so. Our next big event is going to be the schedule reveal, and then we're going to be playing games here in very short order. We move on now to the San Antonio Commanders. Finished the season 7-7. They made it to the divisional round, but they're going to need some help. Montez Sweat, defensive end, left to free agency. So definitely looking at an area there. Also, offensive line could use some help. Protecting whether it's going to be Mac Jones at quarterback or Jared Goff. That's yet to be seen who will win out that quarterback competition. Also, you got Aaron Jones at running back. So maybe get some help on the offensive line. And the Commanders, with that 13th overall pick, take Kenyon Green, guard from Texas A&M. Green, 6'4", 324-pound guard. Twice consensus All-American and first team SEC. He's going to be going to San Antonio. And another one of our new European teams, the Paris Legends, formerly known as the Houston Roughnecks. Paris Legends. As Houston, they went 8-6 last season. They lose some key players on defense through free agency. And the pick coming in for Paris, their first ever selection in the WFL, will be wide receiver Chris Olave. Seeing a lot of Big Ten and SEC selections here in the first round. Chris Olave is a wide receiver, 6 foot, 187 pounds, two-time first team All Big Ten. Going to be trading in the red and silver for purple and gold, the new colors for the Paris Legends. And the Toronto Hitmen selecting next. They'll be picking 15th. They won it all in 2021. They struggled in 2022, making the playoffs before being ousted in the divisional round. They lost a lot of offensive power in free agency. Wide receivers, A.J. Brown, Alex Erickson, gone. Tight end Eric Tomlinson, gone to free agency. Also, they could use some help on offensive line. Second-year quarterback Justin Herbert struggled in his sophomore season as the signal caller. So the pick comes in for Toronto, and they're going to go with a guard tackle, Tyler Smith. He can play both positions and do it very well. From Tulsa, 6'5", 333-pounder, first team All AAC. So he will hope to bolster that offensive line for the Hitmen. And we move on to another new addition to the WFL, the San Diego Fleet. They used to be known as the Orlando Apollos, who went 8-6 last season. Definitely could use some help offensively. They ranked near the bottom of the league in total yards gained, points per game, and passing yards per game. They lose guard Brandon Scherf to free agency. So head coach Brian Flores looking to hopefully improve offensively there coming in. So the pick is in, and they're going to go with center Tyler Linderbaum, 6'2", 304-pounder, a 2021 Remington Trophy winner for best offensive lineman in the country and a unanimous All-American. That will definitely help with some of the loss there of Brandon Scherf on that offensive line. So we're moving near the end of the first round. There's been some very interesting picks here. of where the teams see their top priorities. And we have the Tampa Bay Bandits. A missed field goal in Berlin meant no trip to the Pantheon Bowl. The Bandits have been waiting some 40 years to return to the league title game. This could be Tom Brady's last season in the WFL. His one last shot at getting a title in Tampa Bay. They lose Leonard Fournette at running back to free agency. They could use some help, the defensive secretary and on the offensive line. So we see what the Tampa Bay Brain Trust goes with here as the pick comes in, and they're going to go cornerback Kahir Elam, 6'1", 191-pounder from Florida, former Gator, second team All-SEC, will be going to Tampa. Going to miss that war on I-4 between Orlando and Tampa Bay. I have to admit, with Orlando moving to San Diego. And then the Las Vegas Outlaws. Outlaws with the best record in the league last season, 12-2. They lose to St. Louis in a wipeout, 30-12 in the Western Conference Championship. Looking to improve on defense. Head coach Todd Bowles definitely looking to improve the defense that had some struggles just in that Western Conference Championship game. They lose defensive end Chris Jones, safety Chuck Clark through the free agency. And they're going to address secondary with a pick of Trent McDuffie from Washington, 5'11", 194 pounds, first team All Pac-12. Be interesting to see how Las Vegas recovers from that game last season that ended it all. And we've reached near the end of the draft. Your Eastern Conference champions from a year ago, the Berlin Thunder, finishing the season 10-4. They didn't claim the Metropolitan Division championship until the last week of the season. They struggled in the defense struggled against teams in the red zone. Opposing teams, 93% successful in the red zone. And of course, the Pantheon Bowl was not close. Patrick Mahomes had a day he would probably like to forget. 5 interceptions in that game. But they're going to get a chance to maybe get even. My sources tell me, looking at a sneak peek at the new schedule, we might be seeing a Berlin-St. Louis rematch very early in the season. So make sure you tune in for the schedule release show. That'll be our next broadcast. So Berlin does lose some players on defense in free agency. Dramont Jones at defensive end. Darnell Savage at safety goes by way of free agency. So Berlin's pick is in. The commissioner steps to the podium and announces the pick. It's going to be wide receiver Jahan Dotson. Wide receiver from Penn State, 5'11", 183 pounds, first team All Big Ten. I think that's the first time we mentioned Penn State in our draft today. And of course, we're going to close out the first round with the defending league champions, the St. Louis Stars. Finished the season 11-3. Central Division champions. They survived that divisional playoff game, that wild divisional playoff game against Houston. And then, of course, they dominate Vegas in the Western Conference Championship. And then, of course, they just in control in that game against Berlin. But, of course, as you know, it's so difficult to repeat in this league. Last time we had it was with the BC Cougars back in the early 90s. We haven't had a team repeat since then. And St. Louis is finding out what the struggles are. They lose running back Ezekiel Elliott, wide receiver Adam Thielen to free agency. So the rebuilding process fully underway now for the St. Louis Stars. And we'll see how they'll start that with their first overall pick, 20th overall pick to end the first round. And they will go with linebacker Quay Walker, also another Georgia Bulldog, defending national champion, 6 foot, 170 pounds. Got to check those stats there. 6 foot, 170 pounds, and he's a linebacker. Probably could also play safety. We'll check on that and make sure. But Quay Walker will be going to St. Louis. So that's going to conclude the opening round of the WFL 2023 draft. In the WFL draft, we have 6 rounds altogether. And of course, we're not going to be broadcasting all 6 rounds, but you got to see what the first round looked like. And our next broadcast will be our schedule release show. We're going to officially release the schedule, tell you who's playing in week 1. And the championship game, Pantheon Bowl 22, will be at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. So the road to Las Vegas will begin when we do the schedule release in our next broadcast. So thank you once again for watching the Replay Sports Channel. And just a reminder about some upcoming program. Baseball is back here on the Replay Sports Channel. We've started our new replay, the 1977 Major League Baseball replay, and the return of our Saturday game of the week. It'll be the Philadelphia Phillies taking on the Montreal Expos, so stay tuned for that. If you sign up, if you hit like and subscribe to the channel, you'll get instant alerts of when our games go live. So some baseball will be coming up soon. Also, haven't forgot you basketball fans. ABA, this is our What If League if the ABA had not folded. So it's the ABA 78 season. We're going to have the Miami Floridians taking on the Pittsburgh Ironmen. That will be coming up very soon as well. So again, we're going to wrap things up here from the Replay Sports Channel. You've been watching the WFL 2023 draft. I'm Glenn Walker. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and can't wait for this season to get underway. It should be a very interesting one. Season schedule release show will be our next broadcast, so don't forget to check it out. You guys have a great night. We'll talk to you later. Bye.